Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the MMA Corner post-fight recap. As we come at you, I don't even know what to say, live on the heels of UFC 177, Dillashaw versus Soto. We'll get into all that nonsense in just a second. As always, this episode is brought to you by BattleBomb, the only pain reliever with the knockout power. BattleBomb.com. Check them out, guys. Excellent product. Also, go to the MMAcorner.com. Click on Beat Towards Ugly Mug, Boni Asai, excellent products. Everything that you need from Boni Asai is right. All kinds of discounts, all that nonsense. Go check them out. Boni Asai. Audio for tonight's episode is powered by Soul. Power, clarity, comfort. Soul Electronics. Get you some. I'm your host, Josh Davis, alongside my co-host, Jason Shelkey. Jason, what are your
Yes,
thoughts
sir.
on? Give me your thoughts on tonight. I mean, I don't even know what to say.
I thought that this was going to be, for being completely blunt here, a shit card. I thought it was going to be horrible, and I was wrong. The fights were really, really fun to watch. I mean, was it pay-per-view worthy? That's still questionable, but um, you had a lot of good fights, a lot of good finishes, a lot of really exciting fights. I mean, even the main event that we all thought was going to be a squash match. Well, we didn't. Well, we thought after, we found out on, yesterday, and we're talking about it. That ended up being a fairly, I mean, as one side as the scorecards probably were, it was still a fairly competitive fight. So from, the main card all the way around, I can't complain. It was a lot of fun to watch.
It was an all right card, if we're being honest. It was decent. If you're asking me, was it pay-per-view worthy? I'm going to say no. It would have been great if it was on Fox, Fox Sports One, whatever, even Fight Pass. Solid card, but no, should not have been pay-per-view. However, not a whole lot that the UFC could do about it. Just like everybody else, they didn't have any notice that Brow wasn't going to come in on point, that he was going to come in way overweight, that he was going to pass out while cutting weight, fall and hit his head like Humpty Dumpty, all that kind of nonsense. Uh, be taken to the hospital and be pulled off. Now, uh, kudos to Soto for stepping up and taking the fight without question. And, really kudos to Dana White for basically saying that Brown's got to work himself back up the ladder now, that he blew his opportunity and he's got to earn another title shot. Now, I've worked with a lot of fighters during weight cuts, and everybody does it differently, but you know that you have to make weight. I've never understood why you'd want to try and lose 15, 20 pounds the day before and the day of weigh-ins. That has never made sense to me, but guys do it all the time. So who am I to question how he's done it? Like he said, he did it the same way for for the previous 35 fights of his career, never had an issue, but uh, I don't know. It's just one of those things. So Humpty Dumpty, Brow fell and hit his head. Uh, Out of the fight, replaced by Joe Soto. Still a solid night of fights. I'll get into my thoughts on Soto when we do the main card or the main event, but let's get right into the main card. Yancy Medeiros and Damon Jackson. This was a solid fight, and the guillotine that he pulled off was pretty slick. I don't know what you say about Yancey. He's a solid fighter. He looked good. It was a solid victory. Jason, give us your thoughts.
Well, he looked good against the competition that was put in front of him. As Eric brought up, octagon jitters are real, and this was Damon Jackson's promotional debut, and you could tell that he kind of had the deer in the headlights look during that fight. I mean, it was Yancey's fight from beginning to end. It was just a matter of time of when he was going to end it, and that guillotine choke that he pulled off, that was one of the nastiest guillotines I've seen. It was awesome. I loved it. Big props to Yancey. Really, really impressive win. Uh, Victory in impressive fashion. But like I said, you need to really take into consideration who his opposition was.
I give Damon Jackson credit. I thought dude had a lot of skills going into the fight. I did think that there were areas in this fight that he could capitalize on, given the opportunity. Uh, you called him a deer in headlights. Obviously we all saw that. I don't know if that was octagon jitters from being, making his debut and that kind of stuff, or if Yancey was just that much better and he knew it. So I look to see more of Damon, but again, kudos to Yancey. The guy got victory. He looked good doing it. I'm not going to take anything over him. Excellent performance on his part. All right, Carlos. Uh, Diego Ferreira just put it on Ramsey Najim. I don't know what to say about it. I expected a better performance from Ramsey, but he got his ass whooped, hands down. I mean, it doesn't matter if that fight was in octagon, in the streets, in the bar, whatever. He got whooped, and Diego looked great and getting the finish. I Again, I can't wait to see more of this guy. I think this guy has potential. I think he's still a very raw talent, and as he continues to put things together, he's going to cause a lot of problems for people in that division. He's certainly not a guy that I'm going to want to face anytime soon. But uh, Shelky, give us your thoughts.
I picked him to win, but I didn't pick him to win by this fashion. I thought that he was going to have to get the fight to the ground in order to get the victory, and I was completely wrong. He outstruck Ramsey, and he outstruck him pretty handily and hurt him really, hurt him badly in that second round and rooted that TKO victory. And I was really impressed with him. I mean, he stayed undefeated, um, and the whole thing that I discussed on Thursday about not knowing how to lose when you're undefeated. Well, he was 10-0, now he's 11-0. He still doesn't know what it is. So, I won't want to be the next guy to have to fight him. So he looked pretty damn scary.
And that's always a good comment to make. If you have never tasted defeat, if you don't know what that's like, it's very hard to find it. And someone is really going to have to truly beat him and show him what it's like. Otherwise, he's going to continue to whoop on fools like he did Ramsey. And so again, I want to see more of him. I think as he continues to put everything together, this guy's going to be legit. All right, moving right along, Betch. Korea versus Shayna Baszler. Before I run down this fight, Shelky, start us off. Give us your thoughts.
Yes. Betch did what I thought she was going to do. Baszler, like we talked about, this was her first official fight in what, a year and
19
9
months.
months. Yeah, it had been a
Or a
long
year
time.
and 9 months, I mean, you're right.
Yeah, like it was like 606 days, something ridiculous like that. Been a really long time, and Baszler looked pretty good in that first round, but towards the end of that round, you could tell that she was just getting gassed. And then in that second round, Betch just, she capitalized on it. She just took it to her and got her up against the fence and put a huge whooping on her. I mean, there's no other way of describing it. She just beat the crap out of her until the fight was finally stopped. And so that's two out of the four horsewomen. There's only one left in the UFC for her to fight. She's holding the belt.
Well, and again, Betch called her out, but I'll get into that in just a second. Uh, Shayna Baszler reminded me a lot of Shane Carwin against Brock Lesnar in that second round when Shayna was when Shane was just so gassed that Brock was able to take him down, slap on the arm triangle, and get Shane to tap out. Baszler was the same way. Once she ate a couple of those punches, especially the body punches, it was like she had an extreme adrenaline dump, and I'm sure she probably did going into her UFC debut. She had a lot riding on it. I know she put a lot of pressure on herself to get that victory. So uh, that second round just was not good for her. She ate a couple shots, could not get off the cage, and Betch just unleashed on her, found her range, and beat the crap out of her, and was able to get the finish. Obviously, Shayna's a tough check, and anytime you can finish someone like that, that's great. But like we said on Thursday night, as much as I like Shayna, she's getting up there in years. She's been around for a long time, and she's she's had some missed opportunities, and this is another one of them. She had every opportunity to win this fight, do what she needed to do, and it just wasn't there. It'll be interesting to see if the UFC brings her back or if they kick her back down to Invicta. Uh, we'll just have to wait and see. But again, solid performance by Betch, like you said. That's two of the four horsewomen, two of the three that are in the UFC. The only one left is Ronda Rousey. Uh, I think Ronda whoops on her, but it's still a fight that I wouldn't mind seeing. And especially if you paid close attention and you saw Betts mean mugging people on the way out to the octagon, I would love to see that face versus Ronda Rousey's mean face. And I mean, seriously, I want to see them. I want to see them square up. That'll be perfect. So it'll be the battle of the mean faces.
Hey,
But
really
other than
quick,
that, I think Ronda whoop her.
really quick before we move on to the next fight, you brought up the body work that Betch did, and I think that was incredibly smart of her, considering that she could tell that Baszler was getting tired, and when she first got her up against the fence, she just started unloading on the body. Was the first place she started going, and that was incredibly smart. And I think that made Shayna a stationary target for her whenever she started to tee off on her head, and maybe, just maybe, Shayna should have been trained a little bit more.
I won't say anything about her training because obviously I wasn't a part of her fight camp. But I will say this. Anytime you get hit in the body, especially when you get hit in the kidneys and you pee yourself a little bit and all your air is taken out, it's very hard to recover from that, especially when someone is continuing to whoop that ass. So, she got caught in a bad position, and it is what it is. And here's one more mean face for the future. And that's what I want to see from those two. But I
Dude,
think Ronda whoops her. But
if
let's see it happen.
if that's your worst mean face, there's no way your daughter takes you seriously whenever you get pissed at her. There's no way.
No, she doesn't, but it's whatever. All right, moving right along. Co-main event: Tony Ferguson, Danny Castillo. Uh, all right, Shelky started off.
First off, before
Why
we
we're
get
calling
into everything else, no, I cannot believe the little fit that Castillo threw in his post-fight interview. He sounded like a little kid that didn't get his apple juice after he woke up from his nap. I mean, the salt was so heavy in him. It was like he just chugged a whole can of Morton's. I mean, he was just. I've never seen someone be that big of a sore loser, and for him to pop off on Joe Rogan whenever Joe was talking to him, and he goes and asks Joe, well, how did you score the fight? Well, I'd have to watch it without commentating and blah 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 blah, which is completely true on Joe's behalf. And Castillo goes, yeah, yeah, what was his exact words? Oh yeah, safe answer. So that it didn't show a whole lot of class on Castillo's part because he did not win this fight as much as he thought he did. When he was, I mean, yeah, he had top control, blah 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 blah, but he was just laying there. He wasn't doing shit. He wasn't trying to punch him. He wasn't trying to end the fight. Whenever he was on his back, it was Ferguson that was laying punches. He was the one working. He was the one trying to work submissions, while Castillo was, as he described, if him and Ferguson were in prison, I'm not going to finish the rest of that quote, but Ferguson, he put on a really good fight. I think that the 29-28 for him was well deserved. I thought he won the first and third rounds. Or I'm sorry, the first and second round. Um, and I think, yeah, this is the case where the judges got it right, and they didn't see that just because the guy on top was on top that he was winning the fight, because the guy on bottom was more active. And it's one of the only times I can remember seeing a fight like that scored, or fight like that in UFC being scored correctly with the fighter being on their back, since going way back to when Rashad Evans fought Brad Imes in their tough finale, when Rashad spent a majority of his fight on his back, but was more active while Brad Imes was just laying there.
You know, a couple of things. First off, I scored the fight 29-28 for Ferguson. I gave him the first two rounds. Uh, The first round I thought was clearly Ferguson's. The second round, while Castillo did have top control for what I think the last minute and a half of the round, it was still Ferguson who won the first 3.5 minutes of the round. So to me, that was, again, an easy round to score, regardless of how difficult Joe Rogan tried to make it. And then the third round was clearly Castillo's. You know, he out-grappled him. That's what he should have been doing the whole fight, but he wasn't. Now, as far as his post-fight stuff goes, yeah, he was disappointed. So I understand him being disappointed. From his perspective, he probably did think that he won. But again, it was pretty easy to score and see that he did it. Now, I imagine if he goes back and watches the fight, he'll see that he didn't win it. But again, in the moment, his disappointment, you don't get your win bonus, all that kind of stuff. You're in front of your hometown fans, blah blah blah. I I understand this disappointment. Now, everyone's going to react differently. So it is what it is. But again, I thought it was a great fight for both guys, actually. But really, Ferguson did everything that he needed to do to win, and kudos to him. On Thursday night, if you watched the show, I predicted Castillo to get the victory. I was wrong. Ferguson got it done. All right, moving on to what they told me was the main event of the evening, which was TJ Dillashaw and Joe Soto. Soto, I have to be honest, he proved that he belongs in the UFC. He also proved that he's not ready to be a champion. Now, he did look decent in this fight. I mean, again, I have to give the kid a ton of credit. First off, he fought 24 days ago or whatever it was defending his title. He comes in, making his UFC debut, gets bumped up to the championship, to the main event title fight an hour before weigh-ins. And so just everything that, he had to go through mentally, all that kind of stuff, to come out and perform as well as he did, definitely hats off. Proves that he belongs in the UFC. But every round, he was a step behind and a half inch too short on his punches. TJ Dillashaw was much quicker, was much faster, obviously threw a ton more volume, looked like a combination of Nick Diaz and Dominic Cruz in there, and we'll just call him TJ Dillashaw. And he looked good, got the finish. Hats off to him, and I do think that the Rafael Assunção fight is probably the one that makes sense next, and we'll have to see what happens from there. But great fight for TJ. Way to be a champion and deal with all the nonsense. Still go on, on a great performance in front of your hometown. Give all the fans everything that they wanted to see. So it was a solid performance by him. I have to take my hat off to him. And again, Joe Soto, great job. Look to see more of this kid. Hopefully he, gets a fight that he deserves, and we'll see what happens. Shelky.
First off, props to both of these guys for taking this fight, because I wouldn't have blamed either of them if they would have said no, because Dillashaw changing his opponent after he'd been trained for somebody else, an hour before he's getting ready to weigh in.
Let me cut you off real quick. You got to remember, TJ Dillashaw is not John Jones. TJ Dillashaw will fight,
I
Had
know.
it been John Jones, we wouldn't have got a title fight. We wouldn't have got a card.
No, John Jones would have been like, no, sorry, because he wouldn't even take on a middleweight. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, whenever you're training for one person for so long, and then you have a different opponent, 24 hours before you're scheduled to go inside the ring and fight, that's gonna mess with your psyche a little bit. And so, props to both of these guys for, taking on the main card and stepping up and fighting. I thought that Dillashaw, I think that if he would have pressed harder, he could have finished the fight a lot sooner. And part of me thinks that maybe he wanted to put on a show for his fans that were there in attendance, and all of his family and everybody in his hometown, put on a really good show. But Soto, they showed the punch stats, but I don't think that says the whole story, because if you looked after the fight, Dillashaw's right eye was starting to shut up. He had cuts underneath both of his eyes. So I mean, Soto was connecting with some good punches, and he made, considering that this was his UFC debut against a guy who just wrecked the guy that nobody thought anybody could beat in Barao. Kind of give props to the kid and, keep him around. Dana needs to write him a big fat bonus check for taking the fight and, sticking in there for 5 rounds. And, and he definitely shows that he deserves to be in the UFC. And Dillashaw, once again, proved why he's the champion, that he could fight the, Anderson Silva, like Anderson Silva, and still beat the guy and knock him out and, highlight real fashion in the 5th round. And I like your idea about the fight with Rafael Sensao. That's really the only fight that makes sense right now for Dillashaw now that Barao's out of the picture.
It really is. Again, great fight for Soto, great fight for Dillashaw. I have to give them both props, everything that they went through. And again, I don't want to knock the UFC because that's not what I'm trying to do. Again, they have to do everything they can to put on shows for the fans, and I know a lot of people were like, well, after that you can't do a pay-per-view. It's, guys, the contracts with all of the pay-per-view distributors were already in place. They couldn't just not have the pay-per-view. I would be shocked though if we don't see Dana White doing something to make it up to the fans. That would be my thoughts. So Shelky, final thoughts on the card?
For what it was, I was entertained. I thought it was good. I went in with very low expectations, and it exceeded the low expectations, so I really can't complain. I would have been much happier if this had been, Fight Pass, Fox Sports 1, or even, UFC on Fox card. I think it would have made, been a lot better, but given the circumstances and the way everything played out over the, leading into this event, they did what they had to do. At the end of the day, they put on the best card they could, and it is what it is, I guess, best way to put it.
Exactly, it is what it is. But for everything that it was, I'll give this, honestly, I'll give this card a solid B minus. Everything that it went through, all of that kind of stuff. Every fighter showed up to save this card, and that's the funny thing. You didn't have anyone not perform. I mean, everyone showed up. Even Dan Castillo, when he was laying on top of Tony Ferguson, he still, in his mind, was trying to win. So every fighter showed up tonight to, truly put on a great performance and save this card. So with that being said, I got to give it a solid B minus. Now, a lot coming up in the week to come for all of MMA. So tomorrow we will be back for the MMA Corner News Show, as always, 12 p.m. Mountain Time, 2 p.m. on the East Coast, 11 a.m. on the West Coast. If you missed tonight's card, guess what? We'll have full video highlights up for you shortly. Post-fight press conference is running right now. So everything that you need, we've got you covered. That's why we're the MMAcorner.com, your home for all things MMA. Now, moving right along. In this week, we'll have prediction shows for Bellator, which starts off season 11 on Friday. You'll definitely want to check that out. You have Pat Curran making his title defense against Pitbull, so it's certainly going to be an exciting fight. Plus, Bellator's got some announcements of their own that they're going to make, so you'll definitely want to tune in for that. We will be giving you a full prediction of the main card on Wednesday night. Prediction show will be back on Thursday night to give you predictions on the UFC card on Saturday, and then we'll be back Saturday night to break down that card. And then again, as always, if that's not enough, go to the MMAcorner.com, your home for all things MMA, as we will have you covered with all of your up-to-date news, editorials, fighter interviews, whatever it is that you need, we got you covered. Again, I'd like to thank our sponsors, BattleBomb.com, check them out, Soul Electronics, and then Bony Aside. Go to the MMAcorner.com, click on Vitor's face. All your Bony Aside products are right there. For Jason Shelke, I'm Josh Davis. Keep living the MMA Corner lifestyle. See you next time.